If you spread out or level the demand for your resources, you can easily resolve your conflicts. This is done by delaying a task until the resource is available to work on it, or by splitting a task. You can also let project do this leveling for you. You can do it yourself, or you can do a combination of these methods. Let's take the easy way and let project do it for us. Now, the application will take into account the following automatic leveling assignments. It's going to look at the resources working capacity first. Then it's going to look at the resources assignment units. It'll look at the calendar. It'll take a look at available slack and task dependencies. It'll look at the scheduling dates, the task's duration, constraints, and priority. Now, talking about a task priority is something new that we haven't discussed before, so let's just take a moment and look at that. Again, I'm going to look at identifying major site categories as my typical task, and I'm going to open it up by double-clicking on it. And if I go to my General tab, I now am able to see the priority that is set for this particular task, and that's this over here. Now, what the priority does is it identifies for the project where this particular task goes when I'm trying to level them off. So priority levels are assigned to each task. The default level is 500, so it's kind of the medium range, it's smack dab in the middle. You can have a range from 0 right up to 1,000. A project that has a priority of 1,000 is never delayed. It's critical. It has to meet that particular date. So if I change a priority level of a particular task, I am giving it a little bit more weight in terms of when it will be scheduled in my project. And as well, when I'm looking to level off my resource assignments, it is one of the indicators that the application will look at in order to schedule things correctly. So this is a nice nuance that you can use if you have the time to put a particular priority to your tasks. So, to level your resource conflicts automatically, we want to go up to Tools in our menu bar and then go down to our command called Level Resources. So we click on that. Now, we get our resource leveling dialog box coming up. How are we going to do these calculations? Well, we're going to have them go automatically. So that means that project's automatically going to level the resources when we make a change to our project. We also want to identify how often we're going to look for over allocations. So are you going to look for allocations minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, week by week, or month by month? We're going to look at day by day. The next selection is whether or not we want to clear the leveling values before we begin our new leveling. So as we make changes to our project, over time, we may need to readjust our resources. Once the leveling has been set and the resource allocations have been met, we may not want to start from scratch and then re-level everything. Usually we want to be able to level the tasks going forward. So in earlier stages of your project, you may want to clear the leveling values before it re-levels. In others, you may just want to leave it so that what has been set still stays within the project and you're just leveling the new workload out. Next, you want to determine the leveling range. Do you want to level the entire project or do you want to level just from certain dates? And this refers back to what I was talking about just a moment ago about when you want to start your leveling from and at what point in your project you are making adjustments to your resource conflicts. Because we're at the beginning, we're going to do the whole project. Then we want to determine our leveling order. So this is what order is the application going to look at the information in order to determine what gets leveled when. We have 3 different choices. ID only, which means it will delay or split the tasks with the highest ID number. And by that, they're talking about these ones here, which usually give an indication of the workflow that we're working with. You could have standard, which looks at slack, dates, predecessors, dependencies, and priorities when selecting the best task to adjust. So it does a little bit more of an intelligent look before it levels the tasks. Finally, you have priority and standard. And in this case, it's going to consider the task priority first, and then it's going to do the standard leveling order. So if you have taken the time to add priority levels to your tasks, then this is the one you want to look at, because it'll take into effect the information that you've put into the system. Because I didn't do that, we're just going to stay with the standard leveling order. There are 3 more selections that you can make. You can level only within the available slack, which means it doesn't change the end date of your project. In this case, because I am looking forward and right in my planning, I'm going to leave my end date flexible. Leveling can adjust individual assignments on a task, which means it'll adjust one resource's work schedule on a task independently of the other resources working on the same task. So it's going to look at only the person that's in conflict, not everyone. And leveling can create splits in remaining work so that I can have a time lag between when something starts and something ends so that I can have the same resource work on that particular task. So these are the different choices that I've made. I'm going to leave the defaults in place, and I'm going to click the Level Now button. So now to see the effect of the changes that have been made to my resource list, you'll notice that I have indicators here that something's taken place because I have these particular cells now highlighted in blue, which means something's changed. But a nice way to see it graphically is to use the Leveling Gantt chart view. So I go to that by selecting View, More Views, and selecting the Leveling Gantt view. I click Apply to put that particular view in place on my screen, and you'll notice here that we have green bars added to my Gantt chart that identify the leveling that had taken place. So let me just expand my Gantt chart just a little bit more so we can see a little bit more of our screen. So the green bars represent the duration of the task before leveling, and the blue identifies the new leveling adjustments that have been made. So now you can see how it's been changed and what's been changed within your chart, and it looks like it's pushed out my end date by a couple of days in order to give myself a little bit more slack and play with things. Now, if I would like to manually adjust my resource levels, I'll show you that in one moment. I can go to the resource allocation view here, just to make sure that there's no other tweaking that needs to be done in terms of resource allocation. I filter on the over-allocated resources, and I see that my web designer is still over-allocated. So I scroll through that person's list. And I come to the day where there's an issue with their work. And if I scroll down here, I see that I'm splitting that particular task over time so that that person can do the job a little bit better. If I select the task that's over allocated, so if I scroll down to the bottom part of my screen here and look for the area that's over allocated, which is this day, I do believe, creating the functional site based on the storyboard. And I work with the leveling delay. So if I can play with a little bit of leveling delay and increase the number of days that I can delay the task, click off of that, and play with that until I am able to adjust the figures, I see that I've removed the web administrator delay. So I've cleared up some of my resource allocation by working with the leveling delay area here. And you just keep playing with that until you've removed the red indicators from all of the resources so that you now have all of your resources allocated completely and well for the duration of your project. So you keep leveling until all the red is gone. In our next movie, we're going to talk about establishing baselines, which is the final area that we need to work with in our planning of our project.